And welcome to In the Circle. I'm Eric Lopez alongside Victor Anderson. Of course, we talk softball here, college, pro, you name it, it's here. We had a bit of a sabbatical, but now we are here for the...
No, more like you had a sabbatical, sir. I was there hosting during the regionals, and you insisted I join you on said sabbatical.
Yeah, well, it was an interesting NCAA tournament, to say the least. Florida repeats record numbers. We'll touch on that before this podcast ends. But one of the reasons we are back from sabbatical, Vic, is this summer we've been covering mostly the NPF. We've worked various roles, which won't get into, but we've been involved with the Pride and Disney and so forth. And the NPF Championship Series is this week. It is in Hoover, Alabama. Akron, the USSSA Pride, win the regular season title. They're the number one seed. They will take on the expansion team, the Dallas Charge, in their first year, making the playoffs. And then you've got the Chicago Bandits, the 2 seed, and then the Akron Racers as the 3 seed. We've seen every team in person. The only team we didn't see in person is Dallas, although I got to call a game with Dallas in June. You were my statistician for that. So we've had a good grasp of this team. Give me your overall thoughts of what jumps out to you from the 2015 season to this point.
Well, the thing is, Eric, is that I think more so than ever, this 2015 Pro Fast Pitch season has proven that on any given night, anybody can beat anybody in the league. And we were there at the Pennsylvania series when the Rebellion beat the Pride the first game of the series thanks to a Kristen Sandberg grand slam. So if you're not on your game, every time you step between those lines, you can and will get beat. And I think this season, with the improvement of Pennsylvania, with the emergence of the Dallas Charge, making the championship series in their expansion season, has proven that to be true.
You're right about that. The Rebellion, of course, not making the playoffs, but got to be happy. They got a rookie in Miranda Kramer is the pitcher, of course. And that was one of the things we had a chance to interview Megan Willis, which you can check out in these very same sections. And talking about the youth movement in the league, that's what jumped out to me more than ever, right? More young talent and stud talents. We're not talking, players from in the past. That was kind of the criticism in the past about the league that, well, the best players are playing for Team USA, and this is kind of the second part. No, these are the marquee players. We're talking Lauren Chamberlain, who, in talking to Megan Willis, is arguably the most popular college softball player to come out in recent memory. Shelby Pendley, Miranda Kramer, Lauren Hager, of course, leading the Florida Gators to the national championship. This league has got to feel good. I think Sherry Kipp's got to feel good with the youth that it's coming from this league. We'll get into some of the storylines with Kat Osterman and the veterans, but the youth of this league, that's, to me, what's going to be the backbone of this league moving forward.
And it really brings up a good point. I won't delve into it that much. We'll mention it a little bit later on in our podcast, but the way the game is transitioning, you need that next set of stars. So think about the NBA. You have your Michael Jordans, your Larry Bird, your Magic Johnson, but you needed that young crop, that young breed to come in and take over, be that next superstar to help carry the sport for that next generation. And you're really seeing that this year. And, of course, with the exploding popularity of college softball on television, particularly the Women's College World Series on ESPN, that has helped accelerate the growth and, in turn, the popularity of not only the sport as a whole, but individuals who are in a higher profile playing in the sport.
No, I agree with that. But with that being said, one of the biggest storylines, obviously, this week is Kat Osterman. It's her last week in her career. She decided she's retiring because she's going to focus on Texas State as the assistant coach there. This will be, she said she would play one more year and then just go exclusively coaching. So this is it, the last ride. And the biggest question is, can the Pride and Kat Osterman go out on top?
I feel they can. The only thing that concerns me is that you got Kat established as your number one. Ricketts is your number two. Who is the number three for Mike Davenport? That's the biggest question.
Well, I think Chelsea Thomas, I feel like, has been the number three. The question is, I don't know if we're going to see Chelsea start a game in this championship series. I think it's going to be Kat and Kalani, don't you?
Yeah. Especially if you go into the series where you have to face Chicago or Akron. for the championship, and I really don't think you will. And here's the thing, and we've seen Mike Davenport do this before. He's used Jordan Taylor, who holds the single-season save record, in the bullpen. He's trying to get other pitchers involved, like a Hannah Rogers and Andy Williamson involved when the games are not necessarily out of reach, but still could be had with a couple of good innings. Davenport doesn't need to reinvent the wheel here. Ride Cat, ride Kalani Ricketts, and then if you need to go to the bullpen, go to Taylor. That's it. Don't try and put a Rogers or Williamson in.
Well, let me stop you there. I think you could see that scenario play out if they have a big lead.
Well, yeah.
You know what I mean? Save some arms.
Right, I can see that, but we've seen at times where he's put them in a big lead,
right,
and then all of a sudden it's a 7. It goes from 7-2 to 7-4, 7-5,
Mm-hmm.
and now Taylor, who is expecting to get the 9 off, all of a sudden has to get more.
And Mike Davenport, for the record, you know as well as anybody from Division II, of course, the national champion coach this year.
Yes, reigning defending national champion of the North Georgia Nighthawks, won 50 games this year. So I think he knows what he has here. And I think he's really tailored his pitching staff during the last 3 or 4 weeks to try and get it to where he wants it for the championship series in Hoover. So that's why you're seeing Williamson and Rogers get a little pieces here and there, because he knows when it comes down to Hoover, it's going to be Osterman, Ricketts, a little bit of Jordan Taylor, and that's it.
Yeah, I agree with that, and we'll see how that plays itself out. The Dallas Charge, I think they've done a great job of building their expansion team to be as competitive as they've been, Vic, to be honest with you. I've kind of questioned their coach kind of decision from their lineup standpoint. I feel they should go more small ball, and I feel like sometimes they think they got more pop than they really do.
Right.
Hager has been obviously a great addition to the league. I think she's represented the league well. I'm worried about Lauren, how much gas she's got left in the tank. Remember, she pitched a full season of college softball, led to Florida to the national championship. She's been rocked. She got rocked by the Pride in the last regular season meeting that she had with them. Granted, she's coming off a great performance against Chicago over the weekend, but that's my concern is, Hager. And then after that, it's kind of who's got the hot hand that day, I guess. There's not a real established one. They're a scrappy team, though, with good chemistry, and they will not be a pushover at 4 at all. You have to take them seriously, and the Pride know that.
And I think with Dallas, they're playing with house money right now. While a lot of people didn't expect them to make the playoffs in the inaugural season, the fact that they got in and got it rather comfortably over Pennsylvania, that was just like, okay, we're in. Let's see what we can do. And if sports is any indication of what we've seen in the last 5-7 years, Eric, all you need is just a ticket to the dance. We've seen NFL teams come for the wild card, make it all the way, and win the Super Bowl. Of course, as a Heat fan, I don't want to bring this up, but the New York Knicks in that striped short 99 year were an 8 seed, made it all the way to the NBA Finals.
Right.
We see NHL teams be a 7 seed in the conference, go all the way to the Stanley Cup Finals.
Right.
So Dallas is in the Dallas has just as good of a shot as Akron, as the Pride, and as the Chicago
Well, this
Bandits.
is something to consider. Keep this in mind, too, Vic. They've beaten Kalani Ricketts. So, if the Pride decide to go with Ricketts first against Dallas, that they'll have confidence against Ricketts. They beat her a week ago, which is why I don't know if we'll necessarily see Ricketts right off the bat. We might get Cat to kind of get you off to a good start, I think is what you'll see. But nonetheless, I think from their standpoint, I think they've been well owned. And from what I understand, they've been drawing very well. I think the Cherry Camp's got to be pleased with that market, and they have been very successful, not only in their own home games, but being able to schedule games around the state, which is I think is something that for years I don't think the NPF has taken advantage like they have this year. That state of Texas supports softball. Texas
is probably one of the hotbeds of softball right now. of course, with the South and with California and the West Coast. But Texas is very underrated. They're very loyal. They're very supportive of the teams. And from what we've been hearing from our various sources, if the league does decide to expand going forward, they may have another team in Texas because of the success that the Chargers have had this year.
I've heard the same thing. That Houston has been floated out there, so we'll see what happens. But you're right. I think I could see them going a second market in the state of Texas. I don't think that's a bad idea at all. Awards always important. Tell me if you disagree with any of this. I think Kelly Kretschmann is the player of the year. She's been at the top of the league in average. She's been right there in home runs, up there in stolen bases. Do you have any argument with that? Do you have somebody else in mind?
I think Taylor Slopey will get some votes, but you think about what Kelly Kretschmann did, and I had a chance to read the Graham Hayes article on ESPNW about Kretschmann and what she's doing. And, oh, by the way, she's 35. She's in her 10th season, and she ain't playing, and she ain't looking like somebody of that experience level. She's playing like someone who still has some years left if she wants to play, and someone who can still contribute at a high level.
I agree. I have Monica Abbott as the pitcher of the year. Osterman's been great, but Abbott has been phenomenal. She might be having her best year, which is saying something in her illustrious career.
And here's the crazy thing. She has not allowed a run since June 14th. And her ERA, as of the time of this podcast, is .34. 0.34. Not 1.34, 0.34.
That's impressive. And, you know, we look into Chicago and Akron, which I think is a phenomenal matchup. Two teams with a lot of urgency. Akron got a taste of what it was like to be in the championship series. They lost into the USSSA Pride for the championship. They got to the finals. They are a veteran team with Lisa Norris, Rachel Fico. They are among the tops in the league in home runs. But they've kind of had an up and down year. Fico missed the first month of the year due to obligations with her job at South Alabama as the assistant coach, among recruiting and stuff like that. And then Chicago, one of a well-run franchise. Aaron Moore, maybe one of the best GMs the league has had, is one at Rockford with an NPF Championship and so forth. But it is a veteran-led team, Vic. It's a team that the door is knocking here, but it's getting close to being shut down here. Yeah, some of their infielders are going to move on and retire. We don't know how long Monica Abbott's going to keep pitching. She kind of she chose not to answer that question.
Not the middle answer.
Right. It's now or never for Chicago.
Yeah, and of course you can't forget. Sarah Pauly, who became the first player in league history to record 100.
Sarah Pauly with Akron, you're right. That's the interesting thing. Akron, I think, has the deepest staff when you consider they could throw Pauly, who's been their best pitcher this year. Fico was an All-NPF member a year ago, and Lisa Norris has been an All-NPF pitcher. They got three studs. They have depth, which could help them in this tournament. I think Chicago, for example, you've got Monica. How often are they going to throw Monica? You know, then at number two, you're probably going Gascoigne as your number two. We've talked about the Pride and their situation. I think it's Kat and Kalani's ball this tournament. Akron could go as deep as three.
And the thing with Akron is that they have the type of lineup that can get. They don't have the power, but they have 1 through 9. They will get consistent at bats. So you have Slopey, Barrett. You have a lot of players in that lineup. Ashley Harris, who we saw when Akron was in town to play the Pride. I can remember how many times the bottom of that lineup got things started and turned things over to the top of the order. The Akron team, I think, is the most well-rounded team of the four. No disrespect to the Pride, and they play more consistent. So if the Pride have a bad day from a Cat, from a Kalani, if heaven forbid Monica Abbott gives up 2 runs, which is a bad day for her, the way she's been pitching the last month and a half, I really think Akron has the talent and the depth and the coaching to make a run and win it all.
Akron has beaten Cat Osterman this season. They're not going to be intimidated. We know that. They're not going to be intimidated. A lot of professional hitters there on that team. So I think it's a fascinating tournament. I could make the argument that 3 teams can win the championship. And I don't know if we've said that before in the past. I think in the past we felt, well, it's going to be the Pride or the Bandits probably. But I think Akron is legit. They proved that over the last couple years. And look, Dallas as a 4 seed, like I said, they're not going to be a pushover. And Lauren Hager, if she's on her game with her changeup, she has shown that she can match pitch for pitch. That's going to be the question, though, if it's Hager or whoever, can they maintain that? Because I don't think they have the firepower offensively that the other 3 teams do.
Right.
That's why I don't count Dallas on that list. I think they're a small ball team. I don't, my opinion is they should have been running more this year. They should have been a team that should try to manufacture more runs, but,
Yeah.
What do we do?
See that as it may.
Yeah. So quick thoughts then. Give me your thoughts on this tournament and what you kind of feel will play out.
I think the Pride would take Dallas in 2 straight. I think Hager's going to have a rough day, and I think the depth of that Pride lineup with, by the way, Andrea Duran has started to swing the bat.
Last year's MVP of the league, she's picked up their bat. That's huge. And you talked about Akron. I feel like Akron has a level. They can go up to a 7 or an 8. They're consistent. The problem is I think a team like USSSA and Chicago can go up to a 10.
They got that extra gear.
And to me, you mentioned Duran, Kretschmann, the kids, Pendley and Chamberlain, on the bottom of that order. The Salvatore, the veteran, they haven't had great seasons. Pendley's had a good rookie year. I think there's a bit of an adjustment period with the rookies. That's why, usually the rookies don't just come out and, they have adjustment period, quite honestly, going from the college game to the pro game. Lauren Chamberlain mentioned that when I interviewed her, that in the NPF, everybody's a number 1, So I think, to me, those are the interesting hitters. And those are the type of players that usually decide championships. Megan Willis was a huge factor with her bat in the NPF Championship Series. And I know her stats, she didn't have her best offensive year this year. But Vic, that she's going to be as motivated as anyone to win another championship because her best friend, Kat Osterman, is going out, leaving, and she wants to make sure she goes out on top. And Megan, who knows if this is Megan Willis' last tournament?
And I know you mentioned this previously about Chicago. The Pride have a lot of older players. We mentioned Crush, Otley, Duran, Osterman, this is going to be a last season, Willis. This could be the championship series where we see that changing of the guard, if you will.
No, I think you're right. I think that's a great storyline. You've got the veterans like the Cat Ostermans, the ones that are still the Olympians, right? Part of the U.S. Olympic teams back in 08 in Beijing and Athens in 04. You got Kretschmann there, Megan Willis, Natasha Watley. But then you've got the youth with Chamberlain and Pendley, among others. Amber Freeman of Arizona State. Same thing in Chicago. With A.J. Andrews, young player, rookie out of LSU in the outfield for Chicago. And you got some veteran players in that infield at Chicago. They're going to move on as far as beyond their softball career. So you maybe we're seeing a passing of the torch, if you will. Maybe that's what this NPF Championship Series 2015 edition will be remembered for. We got to see and let it play out. Time will tell on that. I'm going with the Pride. I just can't bet against Kat. Right? Like, it's her last tournament, and I guess the Hollywood ending would be her against Monica Abbott, right? To decide the whole thing one last time?
Well, yeah. And here's another one. We talked about Osterman being here. Chicago wins the championship with Abbott. Who's to say Monica Abbott doesn't decide, you know what, I got my championship. I finally vanquish Osterman and the Pride. Why not just ride off in the sunset like that as well?
Sure. Lots of storylines. I think it's definitely full of many storylines in this NPF Championship Series, which you can check out details on ProFastPitch.com. It'll be televised on CBS Sports Network. So, very good. A couple quick things before we sign out, because we obviously expand the whole sport. We haven't had a chance to talk about this publicly, but the Women's College World Series obviously Florida won the national title. We're not going to recap that. But what we are going to recap is the fact that it was the most watched Women's College World Series ever. It beat College Baseball World Series. The regular season ratings were up 40%. The game was 2 to 3 million viewers. In Orlando, the market was the number one television program. Florida versus Michigan was the number one television program in Orlando, more than the Stanley Cup Final, more than any other program. Very impressive. I think it's a very successful end to the year for college softball. The game is growing. The interest is growing more towards that direction. And I think this myth about college baseball being this higher up than college softball, I think needs to go away.
And you think about it, Eric, with the promotion, the more exposure of the game, the talent that's coming out. College softball really has an opportunity within the next 5 to 10 years to really explode onto the national landscape as far as revenue, ratings, programs being contending for national championships, programs being competitive at the highest level, and it has a trickle-down effect. You look at the Texas Division I, the Pride head coach won a national championship this past season in North Georgia. The head coach of Akron was the Division II head coach of Missouri St. Louis, whose program was in the top 10 for the majority of the season. So the sport is growing on all levels. And college softball is really the bedrock and the foundation of the explosion and the growth of softball as a whole. Now, if you're a softball fan, you will like for the ultimate crescendo to be softball reinstated as an Olympic sport in 2020. Will that happen? We don't know. But with this momentum the sport is getting, you hope that will be the ultimate reward.
Yeah, I agree. And I do think they'll be back in the Olympics 2020 in Tokyo, Japan. Japan is the world, is a power in softball, and that needs to happen. We've seen that in the NPF with all the great players from Japan playing over. This is an international game, and so I think that's huge for them. I've maintained this. I've said this comment for multiple years. I think women's college softball is going to surpass women's basketball and be the women's college sport of all the brands. I feel that women's college softball is kind of like the college football version for women's sports. In other words, it's the most fanatical fan base, right? I mean, we've both dealt with them. They're very fanatical, tailgating. It's very similar to college football fans. They're into recruiting and all that stuff, and the facilities and all that stuff. I do. I think they're the college football, whereas I think women's basketball is kind of like baseball is, kind of the national pastime. It has the tradition because it's the longest played sport as far as for women's concerned, as far as in college. But I think it's kind of reached its peak. I think it's on a downward spiral. Gino Auriemma has made comments about that the product's not very good, and it's predictable.
Gino Auriemma is kind of the reason why the sport is in a downfall anyway. No offense, but when you fill out a bracket and you can put UConn as the national champion, to start filling out your bracket and then work your way backwards doesn't exactly help.
Right. Whereas the softball game, and I talked to Megan Willis about this, it's a lot more wide open now. Whereas 10 years ago, it was the opposite. It used to be, which Pac-12 team is going to win this championship? Is it UCLA or Arizona this year? Not the case anymore. It's more wide open. The game is popular. Women's soccer's right there as well. Let's not, they're right there, A and B. I think women's soccer is always kind of like the NBA. I've compared it to, in that it has its peaks and valleys as far as popularity, but it's always interesting, and people having a strong opinion one way or the other about it. So that's kind of been always by my metaphors, if you will, for the league. But I think the game is growing, and hopefully it can grow into the NPF, Vic. Can it do that? Can the NPF take advantage of that and get some of that interest and popularity of the college game and transfer that, though, to the pro game?
The question is, it's not the passion. It's not the fan base. It's not the television. It's the ownership, and whatever owner decides to invest in having an NPF franchise. Are they willing to invest the time, the money, the marketing to get the franchise there's been franchises all over the league and every franchise that haven't worked. They try to market in New York with the New York, New Jersey Comets. That lasted only 1 year. The Rockford Thunder was pretty successful. Didn't last. They tried a franchise in Carolina. That didn't work. You have to have sustainability at the ownership level and ownership willing to invest and make these franchises work. You mentioned Chicago being one of the best-run organizations in North American sports. We mentioned the Pride, their investment. Akron. We've seen Pennsylvania starting to do some good things. Dallas, they're getting themselves in a position where they could be a strong franchise and a linchpin for the NPF for years to come. Can you get enough owners on that same wavelength and philosophy of this is bigger than me? This is about the sport and the league growing together as one, not what can I do for myself or whatever that helps the league as a bonus.
Well said. And I think, in fact, we're going to leave it on that note. That's well said. We hope everybody enjoys the NPF Championship Series. We hope they watch it and support the game. It's and certainly help it grow. We will be kind of periodically popping in the circle. You want to keep it on social media on Twitter. Eric Lopez Elo. Vic, where's your Twitter?
Catbird Red Twitter handle.
Keep it on Twitter because we're going to keep making announcements about future podcasts and where you can find them. YouTube is obviously the home where so many of you will find them as well. Check out some of the interviews we've done in the past. We've had Laura Chamberlain, had Megan Willis. We're going to have other players interviewed during the off season. So even though it's the off season with fall ball coming up in college game, doesn't mean we're just going to totally disappear. We'll periodically come in and give you some content because it's definitely what people want and there. So, Vic, it's been fun.
People want content, Eric. They don't want sabbatical.
No, they don't. We'll try our best. I'll try to behave. We can go into the rules and some of the changes they've done and rules they've ignored, but that'll take another hour or two. But until then, instead, we'll just do Vic. Enjoy the NPF Championship Series, and we'll reminisce soon. We'll catch up.
Yes.
All right, for Victor Anderson, I'm Eric Lopez. It's been another edition of In the Circle